They called them holy. Wars of divine purpose, waged beneath banners stitched with sacred symbols. Men crossed deserts and oceans believing that every drop of blood spilled was a sacrifice to heaven. Kings crowned themselves defenders of faith. Armies marched with the cross and the crescent shining on their shields. They believed they were fighting for God. But what if they were not? What if every so-called holy war was never divine, but human? What if the wars fought in the name of heaven were born from the fears of earth? The history of holy war is the history of mankind's confusion between the voice of God and the echo of his own ambition. It begins not with swords, but with sermons, with men in robes standing before crowds, proclaiming that violence could be sacred, that killing could be redemption. And those who listened believed. They believed so deeply that they were willing to die for it and to kill for it. The First Crusade began with such belief. In the year 1095, Pope Urban II stood before the people of Clermont and spoke words that would ignite centuries of blood. He spoke of the Holy Land, the land where Christ had walked, defiled by the unbeliever. He told them that their brothers in the East cried for help. He promised that whoever took up the cross and fought would have their sins forgiven. God wills it, the crowd shouted. Deus vult. And with that cry, an age of fire was born. Tens of thousands took the cross. Peasants, knights, kings, thieves, all marching under one banner. They left their homes believing they were pilgrims of war, that their swords were instruments of salvation. But when they reached Jerusalem, the holy city they had long dreamed of, what they brought was not deliverance, it was destruction. They entered the city not as saints, but as conquerors. They slaughtered not soldiers, but civilians, Muslims, Jews, and even Eastern Christians. They turned churches into fortresses and altars into thrones. Contemporary witnesses wrote that the Crusaders walked in blood up to their ankles. They called it victory, but in truth, it was a massacre. If holiness could be bought with murder, then the world would have been saved 1,000 times over. Yet no city ever became pure through blood. No people ever reached heaven through hate. The holy wars were wrong because they began with a lie. The lie that God needs human violence to defend him. The tragedy of the Crusades was not only their brutality, but their blindness. Each side believed that God was theirs alone. The Christian saw the Muslim as the enemy of Christ. The Muslim saw the Christian as the enemy of truth. Both forgot that they worshiped the same Creator. Both forgot that the God of Abraham, of Moses, of Jesus, and of Muhammad was one and the same. The more one side bled, the more the other swore vengeance. The war for Jerusalem became a war for identity, and long after the swords rusted, the hatred remained. But this is not only the story of the Crusades. The so-called holy wars are a pattern repeating across every faith, every empire, every century. The banners change, the languages change, the prayers change, but the logic stays the same. We are right. They are wrong. God is with us. God is not with them. Consider the Albigensian Crusade, when Christians were ordered to destroy other Christians, the Cathars, in southern France. When asked how to distinguish the heretics from the faithful, a papal legate uttered words that should haunt humanity forever. Kill them all. God will know his own. What greater blasphemy could there be than killing in the name of the God of love? These wars were not born from faith. They were born from fear. Fear of losing control, fear of losing unity, fear of losing power. The Church of the Middle Ages was not merely a sanctuary for souls. It was the engine of politics, the crown above kings. The pulpit and the sword worked together. When belief began to fade, authority turned to holy terror to keep the world in line. They told the poor that heaven awaited the warrior. They told the powerful that God himself blessed their conquest. The cross became not a symbol of sacrifice, but of supremacy. And beneath its shadow, kingdoms expanded, thrones multiplied, and the name of Christ was spoken over fields of the dead. Yet even in those centuries of cruelty, there were voices that defied the madness. Saints and mystics who understood that faith without compassion becomes tyranny. Saint Francis of Assisi crossed the battle lines of the Crusades unarmed to meet the Sultan of Egypt. He did not go to convert him by the sword, but to speak as one seeker of truth to another. Their meeting was peaceful, their exchange sincere. It proved that peace was possible even in an age of fire, if only men had the courage to see the divine in their enemy. The same tension existed in Islam. The concept of jihad was never meant to glorify war. The Prophet himself taught that the greatest jihad was the struggle within one's own soul, to overcome pride, greed, and hatred. But over time, empires like the caliphs of old twisted that inner calling into an outer conquest. The sword replaced the spirit, and the war that was supposed to happen within the heart spilled out across the earth. And so both civilizations, Christian and Muslim, fell into the same trap. They mirrored each other's violence while condemning it. They prayed to the same God while denying each other's humanity. The sacred became political, and the political became sacred. Every holy war is, in the end, the same story. Human pride dressed in divine clothing. When we peel away the banners and the slogans, we find the same motivations behind every so-called holy conflict: greed, vengeance, territory, power, fear. The language of heaven is used to justify the sins of earth, and history, in its bitter honesty, records the cost. Millions dead, cultures erased, temples destroyed, faith turned into fanaticism. The Holy Land itself bears witness. That narrow strip of soil, so small on a map, has soaked up the blood of countless empires: Egyptian, Babylonian, Greek, Roman, Persian, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, British. All have claimed to defend God's promise. All have left graves behind. Jerusalem, the city of peace, has known almost no peace at all. Perhaps that is the greatest irony in history. The holiest city on earth has been the most fought over, the most wounded, the most divided. But if history is tragic, it is also instructive. From the ashes of the sacred wars came new awakenings. The Reformation, the Enlightenment, the human rights movements, all were born, in part, from the realization that religion without love becomes cruelty, and faith without humility becomes tyranny. Those who once believed that they were saving the world by force eventually saw that the world can only be healed by understanding. God was never a general. He was never a king of armies. He is the silence that comes after the noise of war, the voice that asks humanity, "What have you done?" We often imagine evil as something dark and monstrous, but sometimes it wears the color of righteousness. When a man believes he is killing for God, he becomes unstoppable, and that is the most dangerous kind of evil. The crusader and the jihadist, the inquisitor and the zealot, all share the same blindness. They mistake their anger for divine justice. The holy wars were wrong because they turned faith into a weapon and God into a slogan. They were wrong because they made mercy a weakness and vengeance a virtue. They were wrong because they sought to purify the world by destroying it. But not all is despair. Every war, even the most cruel, teaches something to those who survive. From the ruins of the sacred wars came poets, thinkers, and believers who saw what the sword could never reveal. They saw that holiness cannot be enforced. It must be lived. That peace cannot be imposed. It must be chosen. That the truest victory is not to conquer others, but to conquer oneself. And this is perhaps the greatest truth that the holy wars tried to bury, but could never kill. That God belongs to no empire, no nation, no religion. The divine cannot be contained within walls of doctrine or temples of stone. God lives where compassion lives. God reigns where forgiveness reigns. When the dust of centuries settles, all that remains of the holy wars are ruins and regrets. The fortresses crumble, the banners fade, the chronicles decay. What endures is the quiet whisper of wisdom that says, "Never again." We must learn from the madness of our ancestors. The holy wars were not holy. They were human tragedies disguised as divine missions, and yet they remind us of who we are, creatures forever caught between heaven and earth, between love and fear, between faith and the hunger for power. If history has one sacred lesson, it is this: the greatest victory in the name of God is not to fight, but to forgive. For the only war worth fighting is the one within ourselves, against pride, hatred, and ignorance. The holy wars were wrong, not because belief is false, but because belief was corrupted. Jerusalem, Rome, Mecca, they are not the homes of God. The true temple is the human heart, and it is desecrated every time we use his name to justify hate. We are all children of the same story, heirs to the same divine mystery. And perhaps one day when we finally understand this, the world will see what the Crusaders never saw: that heaven was never a land to be conquered. It was always a truth to be lived. Please subscribe and share. Your voice keep this channel. See you in the next chapter.